everyone, Miss B. Hanley here, and today I'm talking about different types of nonfiction. Now, I know what you're thinking. Miss Hanley, haven't you already made a video about types of nonfiction? Yes, I have. In fact, it was the very first video I ever made on my YouTube channel, and it's a little outdated. So I decided to give it an update, and we're going to get into more types of nonfiction, both long form and short form. So first, let's start with the short form types of nonfiction. First, we have essays, the bane of every student's existence. Essays can come in one main format. They are set up in paragraphs, but they are short forms of nonfiction that explore different topics. You can have three different types of essays. The first is an argumentative or an opinion essay. This is where the author or writer gives their opinion or tries to argue or convince the reader of a certain point. You can also have informative essays. Informative essays are supposed to be completely unbiased and objective toward a specific subject. They're not supposed to reveal the author's or the writer's opinion or point of view at all. They are just meant to inform the reader. Finally, you can also have narrative nonfiction essays. Narrative nonfiction essays usually follow a story of the author's personal life or the story that an author has viewed or seen or done research on. The next type of short form nonfiction is articles. And you usually see articles in journalism and news. But articles can also follow guides or how-to formats. But usually articles are meant to be informative. Sometimes they can showcase the viewpoint or the bias of the author, but most of the time they are meant to inform their readers on current events or how to do something. The next type of short form nonfiction is speech. Speeches are usually written down. However, the most prevalent form of the way speeches are given are through speaking. A speech is usually given to an audience of people and is usually meant to entertain or provide the audience with insight to a specific topic that the author is passionate about. Speeches will often use rhetorical devices in them to emphasize the author or speaker's point. The final short form type of nonfiction is a dissertation. A dissertation is similar to an essay, but it is much longer. It still wouldn't fit a long form of nonfiction, but a dissertation is created through research and building evidence when a student is usually reaching their PhD. Now, let's talk about long form nonfiction. When I'm talking about short form and long form nonfiction, short form is usually meant to be a couple of pages, but less than the amount of a full-length novel or book. The long-form nonfiction that I'm going to talk about today is definitely meant to be focused on longer-form texts like novels or books. So let's start with autobiographies, biographies, and memoirs. This is the first type of long-form nonfiction, and they can take many formats. An autobiography is written by the person it is about, while a biography is usually written by someone else. A memoir is also written by the person themselves, but a memoir is meant to reflect that person's memories of their life, while an autobiography is meant to chronologically detail the events of their life. All of these types, autobiographies, biographies, and memoirs, can usually follow a narrative format because the author is telling the story of someone's life. The next type of long-form nonfiction are history books. History books usually focus on one specific point in history or one specific topic throughout the course of certain types of history. History books can be telling the story of what happened in the past, or they can be more informative, focused specifically on primary and secondary documents about events from the past. The next type of long-form nonfiction is travel guides. Travel guides are meant to be long-form nonfiction that detail specifically different points of the world. For example, a travel guide book would give you details, places to go or see in a specific city or town. Sometimes you can have travel guides that focus on a whole country, but usually they are focused on specific areas or specific things to do in that country. In travel guides, most often you will find that the format is informative. Usually the author does not give any form of opinion or bias in these travel guides. Sometimes they may offer suggestions or recommendations, but for the most part, travel guides are meant to be unbiased and objective. Additionally, travel guides are going to include pictures and maps to help the reader find out where they're going and what to look for. Next up for long-form nonfiction are textbooks, and textbooks usually focus on a specific subject. For example, the textbooks that you use in class include chapters with different practice activities for that particular subject. In English, our textbooks also include things like plays, short stories, and other narrative works. However, the textbook itself is meant to inform the readers and help them practice on specific skills that they want to learn. Next up for long-form nonfiction is self-help books. Self-help books are books that are written by somebody who wants to give others advice on how to better live their life, to overcome anxiety or depression, or just be more confident in their life. Self-help books will often include worksheets or quizzes for the reader to complete in order to determine where they are in their self-help journey. The last type of long-form nonfiction is commentary or documentaries. Documentaries are usually more film-oriented. They're given through visuals and voiceovers. Documentaries are often cut in a way to reflect the director or producer's point of view. Commentary can also work in the same way. Commentary long-form nonfiction is usually meant to comment on specific events in history or in current events. You see a lot of commentary novels centered around past presidents, current presidents, or other global issues. Most often, commentaries and documentaries are argumentative and do show the author's point of view and opinion. It should be very clear in these types of writing what the author's perspective is and what message the author is trying to get across. We've talked a lot about the point of view of the author when it comes to nonfiction. And the truth of the matter is that nonfiction, while it is supposed to be true events and true stories about the world, nonfiction can often reflect an author's point of view, and you can tell the author's point of view through many different elements. The first element is bias. Everyone, it doesn't matter who you are, has bias. And if you're a writer, a producer, or a director, oftentimes that bias can come through in your work and writing. So that's why it is important to know exactly what you're writing and who you're writing for, so that way you can determine whether or not to show your bias or to keep it minimized. Additionally, an author's tone is basically the author's attitude toward a subject. The tone of the author is the way that an author might say something or the words that they use to describe something that can often give insight to how they feel about that particular subject. An author can be objective, though, or unbiased, particularly if they are trying to stay objective and only give the facts. This is really important when it comes to news articles and travel guides, so as not to influence the reader or the audience to go a certain way, but instead to just emphasize the facts of what is being told. However, rhetorical and literary devices are extremely effective when you are trying to convince an audience to go your way or to believe your point. But something important to look for, especially if an author has bias, is to look for fallacies. I talk about all three of these elements in nonfiction and other videos, so make sure to check those out. I hope this helped you better understand the different types of nonfiction, and thanks for watching my video about nonfiction again, if you were here for my very first video way back when. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I will see you in class. Bye!